DC versus Vampires, World War V issue 1, Matthew Rosenberg writing with Otto Schmidt on art, which was the team in the last run as well.
Mm-hmm.
At least for the back half, obviously, Tynan was involved in plotting at least the first half of that. So this was interesting going into it because that book had a really strong first 6 issues that were really fun. Doing its whole Elseworld, its own lore, all that stuff. Very, very deceased, but with vampires, and yeah, that sounds like fun. And then the back half was a bit of a slog. It felt like nothing was happening or going anywhere, and that was it. So, curious getting into this to see if, like, okay, now this time Rosenberg's on it his own from the start. Maybe he's got a better plot in mind, a better idea, rather than just trying to throw something together to end it, kind of thing. And this issue is probably better than his standalone issues or single issues from the back half of that original book. Nowhere near as good as the first half of that book, though, either.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like the sort of thing where I'm down to keep reading it, but once all the new books start launching in October and November, it might get hit the chopping block at that point. But to go through it here, it starts off with a flashback to 9 months ago, with Kyle and John, the Green Lanterns, like coming back to Earth and being like, "What's happening? Why is it like all winter? It's meant to be like summer right now." And they've both got beards, which is interesting. So we got bearded John Stewart and Kyle Rayner.
Okay.
They're greeted by Blue Beetle and a couple of other characters.
Which Blue Beetle? Is it Ted or Jaime?
Jaime.
Okay.
And they're like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, like you were gone when it all went down. There was a war. Like you know." And they're like, "Where's Hal?" And they're like, "Oh, sorry, Hal didn't make it. They killed him early on." And it's like, "Wait, who killed him?" And then turns out Blue Beetle and his cronies are all vampires, and they say, "The humans!" And then they attack Kyle and John, who, you know, lantern up, try and take all the vampires on, including John turning into a rhino and Kyle riding on his back in like a night suit. So that's a thing.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, of course not. But then Vampire Wonder Woman shows up, comes in, and basically, you know, helps kill both of them. Kills Kyle first, stabs him through the back, and then John tries to get away, but then Elongated Man like just eats him as a big snake. John does break out of that, like he sort of makes him explode from the inside, but then all the vampires just pile on top, and then, like, you know, his ring leaves his hand from the pile of bodies because he's dead. So yeah, the book opens with killing Kyle and John. I don't know if they've killed Guy Gardner yet. I don't remember if he was in the first book, but he should be.
But you know what? Elseworlds and killing Guy Gardner's been a thing, so
Yes.
we'll let's just make it right now until Rosenberg proves us otherwise.
So Damien is a vampire, if you remember, but he goes against the other vampires. So Queen Barbara is running Gotham, and we know that Barbara's got a truce with the humans, and there's like a peace treaty, and Gotham's vampire territory. But Damien's been killing vampires when they're on the road, along with Kate, Batwoman, who's also working with him. She's also a vampire. So the humans, though, led by Oliver and Dinah, Constantine's there, and a couple others. Tally is there. Vampire Gorilla Grodd comes in with Constantine, and he's there to give a message from Barbara that Damien's been killing their kind, and they want the humans to deal with it because, like, he's on their side, kinda. And they're like, "What are you talking about? He's a vampire. He's one of yours." But they want the humans to deal with it. And a lot of this first of all, Talia is conflicted because this is their son they're talking about. But a lot of this just boils down to Oliver feeling really weird because he's like, you know, we've been in this truce for a while now, and it feels like Damien's the one thing who's still fighting the evil, and we should be helping him fight. So he wants to fight the vampires, but everyone else wants to keep the peace treaty alive. So that's going on. There's also the big thing that's going on with this baby that Barbara and all the vampires want, and he's being protected by a vampire who's been attacked by other vampires. And then some Batman shows up and kills the vampire from behind by stabbing him through the chest with a sword. and it's very colorful. It's like a vampire dusting on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but it's made up of like blues, yellows, and greens. It's kind of, this is a fun panel, you know. I can't fault Schmidt's art. So they're setting up a mystery here: is who's this Batman? There's a Batman going around killing vampires, but it's not Bruce. We know it's not him. So who is it? So that's something they're setting up here for
Did they kill Jason yet? Because Rosenberg loves Jason Todd.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. I don't remember all the people who died in the first book.
No, yeah. I remember the big ones, right? Because those were big emotional moments. So
yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, the vampire carrying the baby disappears as if out of thin air. Oliver and Dinah have a sort of heart-to-heart and talk about, you know, what they should do next. Blah, 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 blah. They talk about how Supergirl kind of like brought the sun back. Yada, yada. But anyway, we find out that Barbara and the vampires have been farming humans, and that's against the peace treaty, so they want to keep that in the down low. They also really want this baby, right? And they don't want the humans to know about this special baby. But Damien seems to know about the baby. So the baby's the MacGuffin. The baby's the thing that everyone's going after. Maybe the baby proves the whole human farming thing. Maybe it's something to do with that. The baby's like a breeded human or something. And there's something that proves that.
Or maybe there's like a cure to vampirism.
Or something like that.
Born in this. You know.
But yeah, at the end of the issue, Hush shows up and like surprises Barbara and basically like stakes her and sets her on fire, and the final page is like Barbara like a falling comet off the side of the skyscraper she was on. So Barbara seems to be dead based on these last couple pages.
By Hush of all people?
Well, she calls him Hush, but to be honest, there was a bunch of people in the opening page with Damien who were all wearing bandages on their face, and I thought that was just like all his soldiers looked like that. Maybe she's just assuming it's Hush, but it's not actually Hush. I don't know. But yeah, it was okay. Like it's, you know, it's setting up some stuff. It's got. I wasn't expecting it to be a longer issue though. It was like a, you know, like a 30-something page book, as opposed to normal size. So it did go on a little bit longer than expected. The art is mostly gorgeous. I can't fault that. The bad taste of the last 6 issues though definitely was still lingering a little bit. And I'm like, I'll probably read the next one. But if I don't, it's just because there's not much enthusiasm. Like, I don't hate it, but with all these other books starting soon, it just kind of feels like it's going to be this extra burden once all these Absolute and All-In books start kicking off in October. So maybe it'd be better to just call it quits now, sadly. Plus, we have so many other like Elseworld books that are just doing things better. Like, that new Allwinter book, even though I wasn't as in love with Allwinter or with Darkness of Steel as everyone else was, that Allwinter issue 1 was great, and Kryptonian Age is pretty damn good. So like, you know, there's other versions of this, and we had Jurassic League, of course we had Deceased for a long time. Like, you know, it's fine. It's okay if we don't get into this one again. So
gotcha.
Yeah, it's like a 6.5. Yeah.
We'll find out who that Batman is as soon as they reveal, because the internet loves new Batman. So
for sure.
That's the main mystery that I'm wrapped up with, because if I had to bet money, it's Jason Todd.
It was probably the bit I was the most interested in as well, just because I love the idea of, like, you know, like in like No Man's Land when there was a Batgirl running around and there was like a who's the Batgirl mystery, and like Barbara hated it because it was like, this is the first time there's been a Batgirl since she was paralyzed. And it was like, oh, that was a really cool mystery. So this made me think of that, and that's not a bad thing.